This is SpaceTime Series 26, Episode 8, for broadcast on the 18th of January 2023. Coming up on SpaceTime, discovering the origins of the solar wind, the growing violence of the sun as we move into solar cycle 25, and finding one of the Milky Way's oldest stars. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to Space Time with Stuart Gary.
Scientists with NASA's Parker Solar Probe mission have uncovered significant new evidence about the origins of the solar wind, that continual stream of charged particles flowing out from the sun, which bathes the Earth and other planets and fills the solar system. The new observations from Parker Solar Probe, supported by other spacecraft as well as ground-based observations, are all pointing towards the solar wind being largely fueled by small-scale jets or jetlets which populate the base of the corona, the sun's upper atmosphere. The new findings are reported in the Astrophysical Journal and on the prepress physics website archive.org are helping scientists better understand the 60-year-old mystery of what heats and accelerates the solar wind. Put simply, the new data shows astronomers how the solar wind gets going at its source. The observations are showing scientists how the solar wind rises from tiny jets of million-degree plasma which populate the base of the corona. These findings will have a huge impact on science's understanding of the heating and acceleration of the corona and the solar wind plasma. Understanding the solar wind is fundamental to science's understanding of our solar system, and it's the primary science goal of the Parker Solar Probe mission. Made of electrons, protons, and heavy ions, the solar wind courses through the solar system at some 1.6 million kilometers per hour. And as it travels outwards, the wind interacts with all objects in the solar system. In the case of the Earth, it interacts with our magnetic field, making it wobble like a plate of jello. It creates stunning auroral activity, which we see as the northern and southern lights, the aurora borealis and aurora australis. But if it gets strong enough, it can begin to cause problems with navigation and communication systems. Over time, the solar wind and stellar winds in other solar systems can also affect the composition and evolution of planetary atmospheres, even influencing planetary habitability. At Earth, the solar wind is usually just a constant breeze. And so scientists have therefore been looking for a steady source of the sun that could continually power the solar wind. However, the new findings show the solar wind might be largely energized and fueled by these individual jetlets that are intermittently erupting into the lower part of the corona. Though each jetlet's relatively small, just a few hundred kilometers long, their collective energy and mass might well be enough to create the solar wind. One of the study's authors, Craig DeForest from the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, Texas, says the result implies that essentially all of the solar wind is likely released intermittently, becoming a steady flow in much the same way that individual hand-clapping sounds in a stadium or auditorium become a steady roar as the audience applauds. And it changes the paradigm of what scientists think about certain aspects of the solar wind. These jetlets, which were first observed more than a decade ago, are known to be caused by a process called magnetic reconnection. This occurs as magnetic field lines become entangled and explosively realign. Magnetic reconnection is a common process in charged gases called plasmas, and it's found right across the universe, from the sun to near-Earth space and even around black holes. So, in the solar corona, magnetic reconnection creates these short-lived jets of plasma, and they pass energy and material into the upper corona, from where it then flows outwards across the solar system as the solar wind. To study these jetlets and magnetic fields, scientists primarily used observations from NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory spacecraft, as well as the NASA NOAA GOES-R spacecraft, which is fitted with a solar ultraviolet imager instrument. And they also studied it from the ground, using high-resolution magnetic field data from the Goody Solar Telescope at the Big Bear Solar Observatory in California. The whole study was driven by a phenomenon first observed by Parker's solar probe known as switchbacks, magnetic zigzag structures in the solar wind. The combination of observations from many different vantage points, along with the high resolution of those views and Parker's solar probe's close-up observations, helped scientists understand the collective behavior of the jetlets. Previously, scientists simply couldn't detect enough of these events to adequately explain the observed amount of mass and energy that was streaming from the sun in the solar wind. But the improved resolution of the observations and the meticulous data processing enabled the new findings. The observations showed that jetlets are present all through the lower solar atmosphere, right across the entire sun. This makes them a tenable driver for the constant solar wind, as opposed to other phenomena that wax and wane with the 11-year cycle of solar activity, such as solar flares and coronal mass ejections. Furthermore, the authors calculated that the energy and mass produced by the jetlets could easily provide most, if not all, of the amount of energy and mass seen in the solar wind. The solar wind was first proposed back in the 1950s by visionary scientist Eugene Parker, whom the Parker Solar Probe spacecraft is named after. In 1988, Parker proposed that the corona could be heated by nanoflares, tiny explosions on the solar atmosphere. Parker's theory eventually became the leading candidate to explain the heating and acceleration of the solar wind. The tiny magnetic reconnection events now being observed are, in a sense, exactly what Eugene Parker had proposed more than 3 decades ago. This report from NASA TV.
The sun. It's our solar system's engine, and the only star in the sky that gets our attention every day. But up close, it's unlike anything we can see from Earth. It's ferocious, a writhing mass of nuclear chaos, tangled magnetic lines, and a constant wind with inconceivably high temperatures and speeds close to 1,000,000 miles an hour. Over the years, NASA has sent probes all over the solar system, but never to the sun. Check this out. Parker Solar Probe, and it's humanity's first mission assigned to touch the sun. It will fly to within 4 million miles of the sun's surface, confronting brutal radiation and temperatures that can reach 1 million degrees Fahrenheit. Parker Solar Probe has been prepped to fly right through that unforgiving atmosphere. It's a rough journey. Typically, if you want to head out into the solar system, you've got to merge with orbital traffic. But if you want to head out into the center of the solar system, you've got to run the other way. And it takes a lot of energy. The spacecraft has got to take the heat. Bathed in radiation as it swoops close, Parker Solar Probe used an advanced carbon-carbon composite heat shield to protect its delicate instruments. Here's the technical triumph. The spacecraft's thermal regulation system used just a single gallon of ordinary water, H2O, to collect and then dissipate heat, just like a car radiator. It fly into the corona, the super hot region of gas and plasma surrounding the sun. There's hardly a there, as high energy particles fly outward like streamers. But, and this is another weird thing about the sun, the corona is hotter than the surface of the star itself. We have a few good theories about this, but we're really not sure why. There's some process in the atmosphere that keeps heating it up the further it gets from the core. And Parker Solar Probe is really going to try and figure it out. The corona also propels the solar wind out into space at incredible speeds, way beyond the orbit of Pluto. No one knows for sure what accelerates it so far, so fast. Parker Solar Probe fly right through the origin of this wind, right to where it starts, to figure out how the whole system works. We can't see those processes from Earth, or even from space. Parker Solar Probe is our first direct encounter with a star. Our sun is the only star we can visit, which means this mission will gather important information about how stars work everywhere. That's information we can only get by going straight to the source. Some journeys are harder than others. Some destinations are further, higher, hotter. But the only way to explore a new destination is to actually make the journey. Parker Solar Probe.
This is SpaceTime. Still to come, growing violence on the Sun as we move into Solar Cycle 25, and discovery of one of the Milky Way's oldest stars. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. The Sun has begun displaying its anger with a whole string of powerful solar flares blasting intense radiation into space through a series of violent eruptions. Over the past week, the Sun has launched at least 3 powerful X-class solar flares, each from a different pair of sunspots. Solar flares are caused when loops of magnetic energy from deep inside the Sun break the surface, causing sunspots. The magnetic fields dampen the temperature in the area where the fields are breaking through the surface. So, instead of an average 6,000 degrees surface temperature, the area of the sunspots is only 3,000 degrees and consequently looks darker than the surrounding material. These magnetic loops extend deep out into space, where they can snap, in the process triggering a solar flare, which releases an intense burst of electromagnetic radiation. More violent events, known as coronal mass ejections, also drag out vast amounts of plasma material, flinging it off into space. And if these blasts just happen to be aimed towards the Earth, they cause geomagnetic storms or space weather events. These solar storms can damage spacecraft, disrupt communications and navigation systems, black out terrestrial power grids by overloading circuits, and increase radiation dose levels for astronauts and people in high-flying aircraft. Solar flares are categorized by size into groups, such as A, B, or C class, with more powerful events categorized as M-class flares, and the most powerful and dangerous of all are categorized as X-class solar flares. Each class also includes a number from 1 to 10. Now, the latest blast originated from a pair of sunspots catalogued as AR3186, which are slowly starting to rotate towards the Earth. They triggered an X1.09 class solar flare, relatively weak but still powerful enough to ionize the thermosphere, the upper layer of the Earth's atmosphere, in the process triggering a shortwave radio blackout which affected much of the South Pacific. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory recorded the massive blast on January the 10th as it hurtled a vast plume of radiation into space, eventually slamming into Earth's ionosphere. Just 5 days earlier, the Solar Dynamics Observatory recorded an even more powerful X1.2 class flare. That was preceded by a powerful explosion which rocked the far side of the Sun a few days earlier, hurling a bright coronal mass ejection over the edge of the Sun's limb. Scientists estimate this may also have been an X-class event. Helioseismic echoes suggest that the source of this blast was just behind the Sun's southeastern limb. All this increase in solar activity is a sign that the Sun is waking up. It's come out of its long dormancy of Solar Cycle 24, and it's moved into a far more active Solar Cycle 25, which is predicted to reach its peak in about 2 to 3 years' time. It should make for some interesting viewing. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, discovery of one of the Milky Way's oldest stars. And later in the science report, researchers are using magic mushrooms as a treatment for depression. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. A new spectroscopic analysis of one of the Milky Way's ancient halo stars has confirmed that it's a rare population 2 star, well over 10 billion years old, and one of the oldest stars in the universe. Population 2 stars are important because they're thought to have been produced directly out of the material from which the very first stars had formed. The findings, reported in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics, indicate that the star, catalogued as SMSS1605-1443, contains a ratio of carbon-12 to carbon-13, which suggests that it was created directly out of its population 3 forebears. The relative proportions of these two isotopes shows that the star's internal processes haven't changed its primordial composition. In consequence, these stars have a low iron content but high carbon content generated in the interiors of the very first massive stars. It's sort of like having a pristine sample of the medium in which a star was formed more than 10 billion years ago. And that medium was created by the universe's first stars, which are known as population 3 stars. Population 3 stars were unique because they were produced directly out of the original hydrogen and helium produced in the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago. Because they were formed with virtually no metallicity, they're thought to have been very different in their properties compared to stars today. For a start, they were massive, hundreds if not thousands of times more massive than, say, our Sun. And they were extremely hot and luminous, flooding the universe with ionized radiation. Astronomers call all elements other than hydrogen and helium metals. That's because they're manufactured by stars either during their lifetimes or when they die. Population 3 stars were important because they literally brought the first light to the universe. They ended the cosmic dark ages, and they brought about the epoch of reionization, flooding the universe with ultraviolet radiation, and in the process making it transparent, thereby creating the cosmos which we see around us today. SMSS 1605-1443 and stars like it are known as population 2 stars because they're second-generation stars produced out of the ashes of those original population 3 stars, which exploded in spectacular supernova events at the ends of their lives. Being so massive, population 3 stars all had very short lifespans, living for no more than maybe 1 or 2 million years. And so the only way we can study them is by looking at their children, the population 2 stars. But a lot of these stars are now also gone, so the hunt is on to try and find the remaining ones. They're living fossils, containing a chemical composition which is providing clues about the very first stages of the universe's evolution. All other stars in the universe, including our Sun, are known as population 1 stars and have higher levels of other elements and so increased metallicity. SMSS 1605-1443 was discovered in 2018 and identified as one of the oldest stars in the galaxy by its chemical composition, but its underlying nature wasn't fully understood. Now, thanks to the combined efforts of astronomers using the espresso spectrograph mounted on the European Southern Observatory's VLT or Very Large Telescope in Chile, the origin of this jewel of stellar archaeology has been fully revealed. The study's lead author, David Gatto from the University of Florence, says he was surprised to discover that it was part of a binary star system. It's surprising because not many stars this sort are in binary systems. The espresso instrument's high precision revealed small variations in the velocity of the star, confirming the presence of another yet-to-be-seen companion star in the system. Of course, it's not the only contender for the Milky Way's oldest star. The favourite is still HD 14283, also known as the Methuselah star. It's a metal-poor subgiant, only about 190 light-years away, in the constellation Libra, right near the boundary with Ophiuchus. A study in 2013, using the Hubble Space Telescope to measure precise parallax, and therefore distance and luminosity for the star, gave an approximate age of 14.46 billion years, plus or minus 0.8 billion years. Of course, that's older than the universe, so there are clear issues there. However, more recent models of its stellar evolution have suggested a revision of the star's age down to 13.7 billion years, meaning it could have been formed within the first 100 million years of the universe's existence. A stunning thought. This is SpaceTime. And time now to take another brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week with the Science Report. A new study shows that the world will lose between 26 and 41% of its total glacial mass this century, depending on today's climate change mitigation efforts. The projections reported in the journal Science show that over 80% of glaciers could disappear globally if investment in fossil fuels remained at current levels. Even in a best-case low-emissions scenario, where the increase in global temperatures is limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius relative to pre-industrial levels, over 25% of glacial mass will still be gone, and nearly 50% of glaciers by numbers are projected to disappear. Smaller glacial regions, like Central Europe and Western Canada and the United States, will be disproportionately affected by temperatures rising more than 2 degrees. And at 3 degrees Celsius, glaciers in these regions will disappear almost completely. There are many processes which govern how glaciers lose mass, and this new study advances different models which account for the different types of glaciers, including tidewater and debris-covered glaciers. Tidewater glaciers, for example, refer to glaciers that terminate in the ocean, and that causes them to lose a lot of mass at the interface. On the other hand, debris-covered glaciers refer to glaciers that are covered by lots of sand, rocks, and boulders. Breaking bones can be a life-changing event, especially as people age. Now, a new study by scientists at Edith Cowan University has found that increasing your daily intake of vitamin K1 will help reduce your risk of bone fractures later in life. The findings, reported in the journal Food and Function, looked at the relationship between fracture-related hospitalizations and vitamin K intake in almost 1,400 older women in Perth over a 14-and-a-half-year period. The study found women who ate more than 100 micrograms of vitamin K, that's equivalent to around 125 grams or 1 or 2 serves of foods, such as dark leafy vegetables, and these can include kale, spinach, broccoli, green beans, as well as fruits, prunes, kiwi and avocado, were 31% less likely to have any fractures compared to participants who consumed less than the current guidelines of 60 micrograms per day. Vitamin K1's also been shown to enhance cardiovascular health. The findings were independent of any established factors for fracture rates, including both body mass index, calcium intake, vitamin D status, and prevalent diseases. The largest study yet on the use of psilocybin, the active compound in magic mushrooms, for treatment-resistant depression has found that a single dose of 25 milligrams reduced the severity of depression significantly more than a 1 milligram dose over a period of 3 weeks. But the findings, reported in the New England Journal of Medicine, showed that the drug was also associated with adverse effects, including headaches, nausea, and dizziness, in 77% of patients. The authors say larger, longer trials, including comparisons with existing treatments, are now required to determine the efficacy and safety of psilocybin for the disorder. The world's biggest consumer electronics show, CES 2023, has once again bedazzled Las Vegas, providing people with a glimpse of some of the biggest upcoming technological advances you can expect in the near and not too near future. This year's highlights included LG's new transparent OLED television, a 55-inch flat screen that you can put in front of your window and you can see right through it to the view behind. That is, until you want to actually watch TV. Then just turn it on, the view disappears, and the TV program starts. There was a new e-bike from Icoma, so compact it can be folded up and stored in a really tiny space. Yet it still has a range of 28 kilometers and a top speed of 40 kilometers per hour. But at 50 kilograms, you may not want to carry it up too many flights of stairs. For something lighter, you'd always try Atmosgear's new electric-powered inline skates. And when it comes time for a pit stop, there's a gadget that you fit to your toilet bowl that checks up on your health by sampling your urine. There were cars that change colours, new generation ovens for your kitchen, the latest generation gaming pods, and exercise bikes built into your work desk. And for that person who's got to get every new gadget, how about an automatic Matter-compliant button pusher? With the details of CES, we're joined by technology editor Alex Zaharov-Reutt from ITWire.com.
Look, there were lots of things on display. One of the things was a BMW that could change to virtually any color that you wanted it to.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, in 2022 it was just black and white. And although it did have a range of cool patterns and things you could do, I'm sure in a few years some of those pixels or something will go wrong. It'll look weird. But right now, obviously, it's the coolest thing. And I'm sure you'll see them on sale soon. Now, one of the things that wasn't really big at CES 2023 was 5G. Most people have a 5G phone. most people have realized that all the promises made about 5G didn't really amount to much except sort of like a faster 4G. I mean, it has propelled a lot of sales and there's been billions of dollars worth of upgrades in phone networks, but the 5G sort of promises are yet to really emerge, and a lot of people are now saying that the true 5G promises will be delivered with 6G. There was also the launch of a bunch of devices that were connected to a standard called Matter. Now, Matter is the smart home standard that unifies the Apple, Siri, Google Assistant, and Amazon all into sort of one standard where
So this
you can
is
buy
where
any
you
gadget.
say, Google, turn the lights on in the kitchen, please.
That's right, yeah, the smart home standard that lets you control lots of different devices. Over the past few years, you've had to sort of be in one ecosystem, Apple's, Amazon's, or Google's. And although a lot of devices, for example, were Amazon and Google compatible, or they were, HomeKit compatible, the Apple compatible system, they didn't really work cross-platform. There was an issue there. And Matter was meant to be sorted out a long time ago. It got sorted out last year, and there was a number of different gadgets this year at CES that were Matter compatible. And some of the gadgets that you already own that are already able to be controlled by one of the smart home ecosystems that you're plugged into will get an upgrade to just be Matter compatible so that you can use them with whatever device you've got, which if you've got an Amazon device and you've got Google devices, you can control your Google devices through your Amazon device, or you can control your Amazon devices through Google.
So does this mean that Google, Amazon, and Apple can all listen to what you're saying at home?
Well, it really depends which ecosystem is the one that you're still, primarily plugged into, I guess. And also the fact is that for these devices, at least from what I've seen, you're able to actually switch off the sharing of those recordings. But you do have to go in and specify that you don't want those recordings shared. Now, we did also see HTC launch a new extended reality headset to compete with the one from Facebook. Again, everyone is waiting to see what Apple is going to do. Apple will supposedly launch their headset later this year. It's been delayed a number of times, and in theory, what Apple does is what everyone else will need to copy. Samsung did launch a bunch of new TVs. They had these trifold screens that were on display at their booth, which aren't yet available to buy, but clearly is something that we'll soon see. I did see one of the videos showing that the trifold screen, when folded, is quite thick. It's like 3 phones stuck together. So the practicality of some of these trifold displays is yet to be seen. It's certainly not as thin as seen in the Westworld TV show. But, these things take time to get there.
Now, I understand PC shipments have taken a fall.
Yes, there's stats from both Canalys and IDC, and they have very similar stats. Both of them are saying around about 29% drop in quarter 4 of 2022 and about 16% for the full year. That's numbers that equate to 285 million PCs sold in total. So this is a drop from the highs of 2020 and 2021, where obviously the pandemic grew demand. But if you look at the chart, it's sort of in line with the kind of figures we were seeing in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. We're also now facing, of course, a recession, and people are having to make do with what they've got. You haven't got cash to splash around because inflation is driving the cost of everything up. And then, of course, is going to be the case with PCs and technology. I mean, some people are saying, if you need a computer, a new one, get it now, because in the next year or two it might be much more difficult to get. So, the shipments and sales have declined, and that's not good news for the PC industry. But we'll see what happens in the first quarter of 2023.
Also bad news for Samsung last week. Massive problems for South Australian users of Samsung products who suddenly lost access to their phones. Where's that at now?
Yes. So, Samsung, as we spoke about last week, did have an issue where a number of its devices that were upgrading to Android 13 and the Samsung One UI 5, which is Samsung's skin over top of Android 13, did get stuck in a boot loop. And there was a lot of concern about that. It apparently did spread to more than South Australia. It was some other states as well, but it wasn't specified which states they were. Samsung Australia did email me a statement. It says Samsung has identified a technical issue that affected a small number of customers based primarily in South Australia. Following the release and installation of the Android 13 update to Samsung devices that had been on Android 11, a small number of phones were locked in boot mode. A revised firmware update that will not experience this issue has been developed and will start being rolled out to customers customers over the coming weeks. If your device is currently locked in boot mode, please visit a Samsung service center to have your phone assessed. I mean, the fact that a lot of people didn't update from Android 11 to 12 and then went from 11 to 13 and had this problem, well, it goes to show, I guess, there probably wasn't a lot of testing over at Samsung to go from Android 11 devices because they probably assumed that a lot of people were already on 12. Yeah. But this will presumably get them to do a lot more testing because, this is something that nobody can really put up with. Losing your data is a terrible thing. But, one of the things that people with older versions of Android that cannot upgrade anymore and are no longer getting security updates, they're going to need to update to a new phone. Most of them either come with Android 12 or 13 out of the box. And Samsung always launches new phones around this time of the year. They're going to be launching on the 1st of February at Mobile World Congress, the Samsung Galaxy S23 range. This will be the 2nd of February in Australia at 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So they're saying that they're going to define the ultimate premium experience. That'll obviously be with their ultra most expensive phone, but they say they're raising the bar and setting new standards for what's epic. So they're promising a lot. We will see. And if you are somebody who loves the Samsung Flip and Fold, well, the 5th generation of both those devices will be coming in about 6 months' time. So for those that don't care and just want the latest and greatest Samsung, that's coming in February. And for those who want transforming phones, that's in about 6 months' time.
That's Alex Haravroy from itwire.com. And that's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Acast, Amazon Music, Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favorite podcast download provider, and from SpaceTimeWithStuartGary.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies, or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple-episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to SpaceTimeWithStuartGary.com for full details. And if you want more SpaceTime, please check out our blog, where you'll find all the stuff we couldn't fit in the show, as well as heaps of images, news stories, loads of videos, and things on the web I find interesting or amusing. Just go to SpaceTimeWithStuartGary.tumblr.com. That's all one word, and that's Tumblr without the E. You can also follow us through @StuartGary on Twitter, @SpaceTimeWithStuartGary on Instagram, through our SpaceTime YouTube channel, and on Facebook, just go to facebook.com/SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. And SpaceTime is brought to you in collaboration with Australian Sky and Telescope magazine, your window on the universe.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.